are conducted under the DS Events Calendar 2021. Today, our eighth seminar will be given by the Dr. Muhammad Imran, Assistant Professor, Institute of Geoinformation and Earth Observation. The topic will be the modeling within field variability for precision agriculture application using geospatial techniques. Now I request Dr. Muhammad Imran to start his presentation. Mic is hand over to Dr. Imran.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for your kind introduction of my topic and myself. Sir, could you allow me to share my presentation screen?
डॉक्टर साहब आपको राइट्स मिल गए, काइंडली शेयर कर दें.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So nice. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I once again thank you, Dr. Azam, to provide me this opportunity to talk over some geospatial techniques that can be applied in agriculture applications, particularly with the precision agriculture applications. And this is, in fact, related to the most important topic of modeling spatial variability within fields and at different scales. So, first of all, let me allow to introduce what is the problem over there when we talk about the spatial variability or the spatial variables and have different scales. So by spatial variable and agricultural spatial variables, of course, I mean the variables that vary with respect to space or with respect to time or with respect to both space or time. For instance, crop yields. So crop yields, first of all, I'm making these terminologies very simple because I am expecting my BS and MS students also on the board. So I am keeping these terminologies very simple. So variable means that the quantity, agriculture quantity, of course, we are talking about the precision agriculture that is varying in space or varying in time. For instance, crop yields, soils are also varying from within the field or from field to another field or from one farm to another farm or also at the regional scales. So most of the time we are obtaining data sets at different scales, and we also have models at different scales. For instance, we have crop models at the field scale that are basically simulating the crop responses. And from their crop responses, we can estimate the crop yields at the field level and then extrapolate it at the higher levels, for instance, at the global level or at the national level for food security purposes. Similarly, at the farm scale, we have inputs, the modern inputs, for instance, on the soils, on the market prices, on the other socioeconomic, economic, or biophysical variables. And we use these inputs in the bioeconomic farm models, and bioeconomic farm models give us optimized outputs of the farm, what we can optimize from optimizing these input variables. And at the global scale or at the regional scale, at the country level, we also have models that can extrapolate crop yield estimation or crop yield production for the food security purposes. We can have data sets from international or the data providers. For instance, Food and Agriculture Organization is providing crop statistical data sets on the yields. And there is a remote sensing data sets that are available, for instance, the Meteostates data sets. And then we have global data sets. For instance, JRC is providing soil data sets at the global scale. So the problem is that the data sets that have been obtained at different levels has to be applied at other scales. And for that, we need to model the spatial variability, or in other words, we have to upscale those parameters. First of all, we talk about at the national scale. At the national scale, crop statistical data sets are normally obtained from the national statistical bureaus, and they are obtaining those crop estimates or crop yield estimates from the representative fields all over the world, all over the country. And the objective is to estimate from those observations that are basically obtained at the field level, we have to extrapolate or upscale those variations at the national scale so that we can get a national estimate for food security applications or food security policy making. So the observations are obtained at the field scale or at the representative field scales, and these observations have to upscale to get the map, or I mean the total estimation of crop yields or crop production at the yield scale. So from these national scale, now we come to the field scale, and this is the scale where we have the application of precision agriculture. So at the field scale, we obtain samples from the fields. Those samples could be soil samples or crop responses from the crop models, or other variables that are required for the precision agriculture applications. And the objective is that because we cannot obtain measurement or sample at each point within the field, so we have to upscale these samples or these observations that have been obtained at the, for instance, different sampling points. Here you can see with the yellow field, you can see we have obtained samples using the complete random sampling. I mean, we have randomly obtained some samples. And the objective is to extrapolate these samples to unobserved locations so that we can get map that can be applied to agricultural equipment or variable technologies, for instance, so that those maps, those variable rate technologies or equipment can use those maps for using the inputs in an optimized way. In spatial statistics or in geostatistics, the problem is that we have these locations where we have sampled, we obtained samples, and these are ZS1, ZS2, and ZSN. And these are those locations where we physically obtained samples. And we have to predict the values at unsampled locations ZS0. So this is a generic problem, or the mathematical form of the problem that we have in geostatistics and in spatial statistics, that we have to predict the variable or the sample at unobserved location using the values of that variable from the observed location. The generic model that we use in geostatistics and in spatial statistics is given in this slide, and that is ZS. Z means the variable that we are going to predict or upscale, and then this is the trend part, the trend component of the model. I mean, if this variable have some sort of trend with other variables in the neighborhood. For instance, if we are, predicting the crop yields, so crop yield might have trend with other variables. For instance, soil variables, crop yield can have trend with the precipitation, rainfall values in the same field. So this is the trend component that we have to model, or sometimes we assume that this trend component is constant, and plus this is the stochastic component that we have to model from the probability distribution of that variable. With that, for this stochastic component, we have ruling equation from this equation. That S naught is equal to summation of all weights of S naught, mean this point at unobserved location, and it's the neighboring points. And what is the weight? I mean, we just want to give weights to the values at the neighboring points of this S naught location for which we are going to predict the value. So crop yield at S naught might be some weighted summation of the crop yield at S1, crop yield at S2, and crop yield at S3. So estimation of these weights are, we call it lambda i's, is the problem in geostatistics, for which we use different tools. Let's come to the geostatistical approaches for these tools. In geostatistical approaches, we use semi-variogram or semi-variances. And semi-variances are basically the value of that variable at location S minus the value of that location at distance S plus H. I mean, the value of observable that we are going to predict, the difference of those values at some certain distances. So when we model this equation for all the distances of that variable, we come up with, and we draw those distances or semi-variances against the distance. We come up with the semi-variogram that shows how the spatial variability of that variable that is varying within the field. And it provides us the point where the spatial variability of that particular variable is started and how it was varying within the field, and from what point it became constant or it was not varying within the field. So these points are used to provide lambda I weights of this equation, and in other words, modeling or predicting the spatial variability within the field. And here you might notice that we are not using the coordinates itself. We are only using the value of that variable at some point S and the value of that variable at some distance H. For instance, if crop yield at S1 is for instance 680 kilogram per hectare, and crop yield value at S2 is 700 kilogram per hectare, we are using we are calculating the difference of these values, 700 minus 680 kilogram, and the distance. What is the distance between these 2 points? But we are actually not using the coordinates. I mean x1, y1 coordinate and x2, y2 coordinate of these S1 and S2 points. And this is because we have already assumed that this trend part is constant. This trend part is constant, and this trend part is not varying with respect to the location. And the approach here we used that used variogram or semigram is in geostatistics called ordinary Kriging. Ordinary Kriging not only estimates the the predicted values at unobserved location, but it also estimates the prediction error of that variable. How much error was calculated or associated with that variable, with that value that have been predicted for the unobserved location. For the same, for these points, field points, we have obtained using ordinary Kriging, we have obtained a very nice map at the national scale. And we also have obtained, and this is basically showing how the crop yields are varying at the national scale. These different colors or legends are showing that this part of the country has a crop yield variation from 250 kilogram per hectare to 300 kilogram per hectare, and this red colors are showing bit higher values of the crop yields at different parts of the country. Similarly, these soil samples have been taken from the field, and using the ordinary Kriging, we have obtained a very beautiful map showing the variability of these soil samples within the field. And because this is a continuous map, the continuous legend is showing how the soil variables are varying within the yield. For instance, the areas with blue shades are showing a bit low values of the pH soil variable, quantity, and the areas with yellow color or orange color are showing bit higher value of the pH value within the field. So these maps are upscaling of the soil samples can be used in the precision agriculture application, in the precision agriculture equipments that have been using the variable rate technologies. So using these maps, they can decide which part of the field can be given how much amount of the how much amount of the input. Similarly, this is not ordinary Kriging or geostatistical approach is not only giving us the variability of the pH within the field, but it's also providing us the error associated with each predicted value of the pH variable. And sometimes the equipments or variable VRT equipments are also using these error maps, because these are giving the plus minus standard deviation of that particular value that have been predicted by the geostatistical approaches. Now, these approaches, geostatistical approach was considering or assuming that this trend part is a constant, and we were only modeling this stochastic part through semi-variograms. But in some cases, particularly at the national level, national scales, at the higher scales, at the larger scales, when we need to predict the crop yield or crop yield estimates, we have to assume that crop yield is not only the function of location, but it is the function of all other variables that are directly affecting the crop yield. For instance, precipitation, elevation, and all these variables. So initially, we were basically assuming the trend part is constant, but at the national scales, the trend part is important to model because crop yields are correlated with the location. Crop yield may correlate with the classes, land cover types, soil types, and crop yield may vary according to some continuous covariance. So in this case, we have to model the trend. Here, we obtained some variables that can directly uh, can directly be correlated with the crop yield. For instance, soil calcareous in the topsoil. So this map is showing the percentage of soil that is varying at the country scale, and similarly, this map is showing the percentage of soil loam in the topsoil, and and this is also varying in at the country scale. Similarly, soil sand, soil water logging at the country scale, slope at the country scale, elevation are also when we are modeling crop yield at the national scale, elevations become also important. Similarly, rural population density that provide labor and rainfall variation if we are specifically when we are modeling the crop yield in the rain-fed areas. Similarly, we can obtain some parameters that are highly correlated with the crop yields from the remote sensing data. Normalized different vegetation index is an example that we can obtain from the remote sensing data, satellite spot or modest data sets. And in literature, uh, many studies found that NDVIs are highly correlated with the crop yields. And similarly, we can also obtain rainfall estimates from the remote sensing data sets. So the importance of modeling trend becomes vital when we are using secondary data sets, or we are using the remote sensing data sets, and with the use of these data sets, we want to improve the accuracy of crop yield prediction at the larger scales, at the national level scales. Now, the equation here is that crop yields are a function of, for instance, NDVI we obtain from the remote sensing data sets, precipitation that we also obtain from the remote sensing data sets, elevation that may also be obtained from the remote sensing data sets, rural, it was, for instance, rural population density, market distances can also be calculated using GIS, and some error component. So with this, we not only have to model the beta coefficients for these variables using some regression technique, but also what we have initially modeled the stochastic component through semivariance. So first we have modeled semivariance or semivariogram using ordinary Kreyszig, and we model the stochastic component of this problem. Second, we also modeled the trend component of the model using the variables obtained from the remote sensing data sets. With this, we can obtain a better prediction maps or crop yield estimation maps at the national scales with much accuracy and less errors as compared to the what we can already obtain through ordinary Kreyszig using modeling simply the stochastic component of the model. Next, as I already told that these geostatistical approaches are basically using the value of the variable that we are going to model at some location S and its value at location S plus H, and the distance between these two quantities. So we are not using what we call it the coordinate values, or we are not assuming that this variable, but we are the crop yield are not the function of location itself. So in addition to the special Geostatistical approaches, we have special statistical approaches, special statistical approaches just like geographical weighted regression. So geographical weighted regression approaches keeping the location of that particular variable into account. This is the function, the yield equation. Yield is a function of NDVI, precipitation, elevation, and similarly market distance. And when we use the global model, I mean global regression models, we only have to compute a single beta values or the regression coefficients for these variables or explanatory variables. And when we move from the global regression to the geographical weighted regression, we have the approaches we use in in special statistics normally model regression coefficient at each location. So beta k that was single values in here in global models becomes location specific in the geographical weighted regression models in spatial statistics. So we can also obtain some accurate maps at the national scales using the geographical weighted regression. And we can also have the prediction error associated with these maps. Concluding remarks, I would like to say that the spatial statistical tools basically used to upscale the agriculture variables, whether we are working at the field scale or at the national scale. At the field scale, this spatial variability, modeling the spatial variability at the scale, at the field scale would help us to upscale the sampling, the sampled values to the field scale, and those maps can be used in precision agriculture applications. And when we move from field scale to the national scale, we can also extrapolate crop yields at the national scale using some remote sensing data sets, and those maps can be applied in food security application for policy making. Thank you very much. I would like any question from the
thank you very much for your very informative and on the new horizon of agriculture, a beautiful presentation. Now we have 5 questions. Please, the other audience need to close their mic. Please mute their mic. And we have 5 questions. If someone has a question, please one by one take the question.
That's how I have a question.
Please. Ahmed Farasa, please.
That's how, have you compared your predicted yield with the national average yields and what is the difference between them? One question. And second is that why you have not included temperatures in your yield model?
Yes, we have a very nice paper published in International Journal, and we also estimate, basically the objective was how these models, how much these models are accurate. So we separated 25% values of the statistical observations, and we kept it as a for the accuracy assessment, training sample data sets for the accuracy assessment, and we calculated and we found very close match between the results of our models, the special statistical models, and the statistical data sets. Second, yes, we can also include temperature for the model, but initially we included 20 to 30 variables, and we used stepwise linear regression, and we excluded those variables that were not highly correlated with the crop yields. And the temperature was also among those variables that was not correlated, or there was some multicollinearity effect. So multicollinearity effect is also very important to keep in view, because most of the environmental variables are varying together. So if there, for instance, temperature may also have a correlation with the rainfall. If two variables have correlation with each other, including though both variables can use some error, and this effect is called multicollinearity effect. So in such kind of modeling, we remove this multicollinearity effect and remove all those variables that are highly correlated. And I mean, I am talking about the explanatory variables that are highly correlated with each other. So we can definitely, we have to include temperature in such kind of applications, but we also have to see if this temperature variable is adding much to explain the spatial variability. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other question, please?
Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Sahab. I am Dr. Mohammad Fahad. My question is, can you show the slide where you presented the semi-variogram? What do you mean by the value of y-axis, where you have mentioned? Now, I am talking about the graph, semi-variogram graph, 1.5 or 2. What does this represent, this semi-variograph on y-axis? Yes, this on
Very
y-axis.
nice question, very good question, Dr. Sam. Basically, the semi-variogram, first I move to semi-variogram. In the semi-variogram, for instance, we have crop yield. I am talking this variable, what we are going to model. So y could be crop yield, y could be pH value, y could be the pollution variable, some pollution variable, y could be some ground quality, water quality parameter or variable. So anything that is varying in space and time is basically y. Here in this context, we are using y crop yield as a y. So for instance, if we are going to model the spatial variability of crop yield, so the value of crop yield at point S, so for instance, it is 680 kilogram per hectare. And the value of crop yield at distance H might be 780, 700, for instance, kilogram per hectare. So this difference, basically this difference at certain distances is providing us the semi-variogram. And when we plot these distances against the values or difference of values, I mean semi-variances, we call it semi-variances. When we plot these semi-variances, or the difference between the values against the distances, we get the spatial variability. I mean, from which point the spatial variability was started, and we call it, I mean, in geostatistical term, the nugget value, and at what point, at what distance this value was varying within the field, and at what point it start constant and stop varying. So these parameters are basically used to find the lambda values, or these weight values that are used to predict I mean the crop yield at unobserved location. Can I explain, Dr. Sam?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice of you. Thank you.
Anji, any more question, please?
सर ये जो हम डेटा डाउनलोड करते हैं प्रेसिपिटेशंस का या टेम्परेचर का सैटेलाइट्स के थ्रू, तो सर ये जो हमने अपने इसमें मैप शो करवाया ITW कर्व्स, सर इसके जरिए हमें पता चल जाता है कि डेटा हमारा कहाँ पे इंक्रीज हो रहा है, कहाँ पे डिक्रीज हो रहा है, या हमें फर्दर में कोई टेस्ट वगैरह लगाने पड़ते हैं या यू टेस्ट वगैरह?
I mean, you are talking about these satellite data.
यस सर.
Yes. So, you know, NDVI, for instance, I am just giving an example. NDVI is a measure of greenery. Okay. So you can, it itself is not giving anywhere. It's just giving the measurement of greenery, that how the green vegetation is varying in the space, how the green is varying in the space. Or green color is, I must say, green color is varying in the space. To give it the proper context, we have to correlate it with the variable what we are going to model. For instance, if we are going to model crop yield, which crop yield? Cotton crop yield, wheat crop yield, which kind of crop yield? So we have to find which beta value or coefficient of NDVI is properly giving us the crop yield of cotton, and which beta value or crop or NDVI coefficient is giving us the value of wheat yield or predicted value of the wheat yield. So it's the subject of the objective, what objective you have. So remote sensing data itself gives you estimates, of I mean, we call it land cover. So what the satellite was seeing from the space, and how it is related with the ground reality, that we need to model as a scientist with our own objective. Can I answer your question?
Yes sir, thank you sir.
Okay, any more? We have two questions. If still any more?
Sir, there is another question. Can I ask?
Please.
Yes, please.
Okay. Sir, as per my understanding, as you have explained, Ardney kriging and there is another kriging, global weight regression kriging. Ardney kriging is mostly used for some smaller field, and other weightage kriging is used for regional level. Am I right?
Yes, you are very right, because ordinary kriging normally calculates the semi-variances, and based on these semi-variances, it predicts the values at unobserved location. But when we move from the field scale to the larger scales, for instance, national scales or regional scales, there are so many other factors that involve, and we simply may not say that only distance is ruling over the variability or the spatial variability of that particular variable. So, for instance, soils also are impacting a lot. Similarly, other variables are also impacting the spatial variability of that particular variable. So in that case, it's better, or it's proven that if we model that trend also and add that trend, that trend can be modeled through regression or multiple linear regression. And if we add that trend to our ordinary kriging surface, then this is called what we call regression kriging. It can give us a better estimates at the national level compared to modeling simple with ordinary kriging at the national level. So you are right, sir.
Thank you, sir. Just one comment. As you know, we are working on all of us. You are also team member of that project, Precision Agriculture. We should prefer ordinary kriging for our project, as you know, on Kunt farm.
Yes, yeah. If we are working at the field level, ordinary kriging could be good. Could be give you better estimates, because you know, it would fulfill your objective. Because at that scale, at the field scale, it's not better you get the other services or other surfaces for modeling the field variability or the spatial variability. Ordinary kriging would be quite suitable or quite appropriate.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Dr. Saab, thank you very much. As you know, we have two projects. Both are from the precision agriculture, and hope your presentation will help the students and project employees and research officers to implement that research in our at our farm and to teach the students. Thank you, Dr. Saab, for your wonderful presentation and sparing your valuable time. And I just want to tell the next presentation will be on the 5th of May. It is from the Institute of Food and Nutrition Sciences, and we will see on each other on the 5th of May, inshallah. Thank you very much.